Welcome back, everybody. It's Scott here, and let's do another YouTube video because this is YouTube and it's for videos. Okay, so I'm doing a review here of a camera that nobody cares about, and should they care about it? Probably not. It's an old camera. It's pretty irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. I'm not going to get a lot of views on this video, and that's totally fine with me. But there is a reason that I own this camera, and we'll talk about that a little later on. There also is another reason I'm doing this video. It's because I've just switched video editing software. I was using a Corel program before that was really limiting what I could do and the quality of my videos. I just switched to Davinci Resolve 16, so I need a video to edit that isn't too transition intensive and title intensive and whatever, just to practice before I do stuff out in the field. So yeah, if this video looks different or sounds a little better or whatever, that's why. It's because I've switched to Davinci Resolve 16. So the camera that I'm reviewing is the Sony A390, and I've got it right back here. Let me pull up some specs here on it because I don't have them memorized. So let me grab my phone and we'll run down the specs of this old clunker. Okay, so the Sony A390 came out way back in July of 2010. It was $600 at the time. It came with a kit lens, which I actually have back here. I don't have the kit lens on it at the moment, but it was your typical sort of entry-level kit lens. It's a pretty chunky camera. It's photo only. There's no video with this camera. It has an optical, really, there's a guy doing woodwork. One of my neighbors is like cutting stuff. Oh my God. All right, hopefully he's taking a little break from the woodworking. Okay, so this is a 14.2 megapixel APS-C CCD censored DSLR from 2010. CCD sensors are gorgeous, but they're not so great in low light. And we'll talk about that a little later. This thing, like I said, it doesn't shoot video. It has a tilty screen on the back, which is nice because this actually does have live view, which works fairly well. It's got your typical sort of entry-level DSLR mode dial on the side here. You can switch between live view and the viewfinder here. It's got a manual focus, autofocus switch on the side, your usual navigation. The side here, it takes SD cards, which it also takes Sony's memory sticks, if you guys remember those, but that's the problem with some older Sony cameras is they were memory stick only, and you can actually use SD cards, regular SD cards in this camera, which is nice. It's not weather resistant at all. The grip it's pretty substantial, but it's kind of thin and really not incredibly comfortable. The shutter button isn't threaded or anything like that. If you want to do shutter release, you have to do it through a port on the side here. I believe the flash pops up automatically when you need it. There is a pop-up flash. There's no dedicated switch to pop the flash up, which is an interesting choice. But there you go. So 2010, in camera years, that's a long time ago. So Sony acquired Minolta in 2006, so 4 years before this camera came along. Minolta had done digital DSLRs in the early 2000s. So this is just essentially an evolution of Minolta DSLRs, and that is one of the reasons that I own this camera, because I own a Minolta Maxim 7000, which uses the AF mount. This camera also uses the AF mount. So this lens that's on here right now is a Minolta AF. Let me get the lens cap off here. This is a Minolta AF 50mm f1.4, and it just fits. So it's got the same mount as my Minolta film cameras. There you have it. So you can use Minolta AF mount or Sony AF mount, Sony A mount, AF mount. They're both the same thing. You can use those lenses directly on this camera. They will autofocus. They'll communicate with the camera. Aperture autofocus. Everything works. and works really, really well. That is the reason I bought this camera. I've taken pictures with it before in another review about not need. I did a video about how you don't need a new camera, and then I've bought a billion new cameras since then. So maybe don't listen to me when I say stuff like that. But you don't need to buy new cameras all the time, okay? I'm talking to you, not to me. I don't have a problem. So the kit lens this thing came with was an 18 to 70 f3.5 to 5.6. Pretty run-of-the-mill kit lens, if I'm being honest. But some of the old Minolta glass that you can get for this camera is really, really good. And in particular, that 51.4 is excellent. And this 70 to 210 f4 is affectionately called the beer can lens because, I mean, it looks like a black can. That is maybe one of the best telephoto lenses I've ever used. The f4, I wish it was f2.8. f4 is just fine. The constant aperture is great. It is super sharp and it's beautiful for portraits. Having that extra 10 mil from a 70 to 200 doesn't really make that much difference, but nevertheless, with it on an APS-C camera, it's the equivalent of like a 70 to 300, 75 to 300, essentially. So you get a little more reach because of the cropped sensor. The thing about shooting this camera is, I think CCD sensors, you had a CCD sensor in the Leica M8 and in some other digital cameras as well. CCD sensors are beautiful. They're absolutely gorgeous. The colors that they render are very film-ish. And shooting black and white on a CCD sensor is just amazing. It's maybe my favorite kind of digital black and white. Fujifilm's black and white simulations come really, really close to it as well. And I've actually noticed that Panasonic's new cameras, their black and white looks excellent also. But just from a purely personal point of view, I love the black and white that comes out of this particular CCD sensor. So why review this camera? Well, I know a lot of people that have old Minolta or old Sony lenses kicking around. Well, I guess old Minolta lenses, or people that had the Maxim system back in the day. And if you want to still use those lenses, but you don't want to shoot film anymore, these things are dirt cheap. You can pick them up for $100, $150 on eBay. There's a bunch of cameras of this sort of vintage. There's some that are slightly newer, some that are a little older, that all use this mount. So if you have these lenses kicking around, they're great lenses and still very, very usable on digital. You can also use these lenses on Sony's full-frame DSLRs like the A900, A9. I'll put it down here. I'm not up on my Sony DSLRs, but full-frame lenses, clearly. So using them on a full-frame sensor would be more beneficial, I would say, but I mean, using them on a cropped sensor, you could argue that you're using the best part of the lens anyway, which is sort of the center of the lens, which is typically sharper, especially wide open. Would I recommend going out and getting one of these cameras if you don't have one? No, I wouldn't. I mean, don't do it. Unless you have lenses you can use on it, or unless you just are bored one day and you're like, what kind of crappy camera can I go out and buy today? I mean, you can get one of these. It's slow. The battery doesn't last very long. The live view's okay for a camera of this age, but I never use it. I just use the OVF. It's not that comfortable to hold. It's pretty big. It's kind of heavy. So overall, not a recommended camera by any means, but it's still cool that you can take some lenses from the 80s, slap them on a DSLR, and they just work. And that's why I have this camera. So the Sony A390, just a bit of a throwback review here. I hope you enjoyed the images that I've been sharing with you throughout this video. Don't forget to subscribe and like and all those things that YouTubers tell you to do at the end of every video that I always forget to say, because honestly, it doesn't matter. You'll subscribe if you want, or you won't, and that's fine. So I will see you guys in the next video, or maybe I won't. Actually, I never see you guys. You guys will see me in the next video. That's weird how we say that, isn't it? I'll see you guys in the next video. I don't see you. I'm staring at a camera right now. I don't see anybody but myself and my monitor up here. So it's kind of awkward now that I'm thinking about it. Okay, bye.